This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good morning. I'd like to call our February 1st workshop. Our first thing on our agenda is IT. We have a new IT director. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the board.
Good morning. I'm Alex Linos. I'm the new IT manager for the town of North Haven, and hopefully we'll be getting to know each other over the next several years together. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. If you want to take us through the operational side of your budget, doesn't look like you really have any changes other than Munis.
Yes, Munis is increasing slightly because our contract with Tyler Technologies is up for, I was locked in for 3 years. I did contact our rep, and there is no bonuses for locking in for any amount of time, price-wise, so we're going year to year with Tyler Technologies for now.
Okay. And actually, the only significant things you do have is your capital request.
Yes, I have the IT department would, for our capital request in our budget was 2 items. The first of which is a 10 gigabit network upgrade. This request is to provide hardware and network services to the town buildings in order to facilitate an upgrade from 1 gigabit to 10 gigabit. Some of the existing fiber laid between the buildings can handle the increase in speed, but requires either new adapters at the end or replacement switches. Where the fiber does not meet the requirements, new fiber has to be run in the conduits. This enhancement of service will increase performance for more cloud-centric applications. Currently, several of the packages the town utilizes are hosted in the cloud, such as Munis. And I included a packet with the estimated costs associated with that. Is there any questions regarding the proposal for the 10 gigabit upgrade?
The present system, is it near capacity?
We are at times experiencing latency from our campus buildings, which is Town Hall is actually a campus building because everything is hosted in the annex. So we've seen spikes from here and from the police department and the fire department, especially now where more video is being stored in the cloud instead of being on premise. We're seeing a lot more streaming, a lot more usage of data, and in addition to this, which you don't see in our existing lines, we're also upgrading the town's internet service from its current provider to a gigabit service through Frontier.
Is this a normal progression from going from 1 to 10?
It is primarily in our data center where all the servers talk to each other. It should be a 10. And in addition, in speaking to our team that runs our fiber, they're seeing a lot of campus-style buildings moving to a 10 gigabit service between them.
Alex, it may or may not matter, but you do know that Frontier is about to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'd ask you to before you move over to them, to make sure that's the right move.
My
We
understanding
do
is
have
their debt service is way out of line, and they're going to restructure it, but that can take some time.
We do have several. We have several backup lines in town. So we also have Comcast service as well, and we have an additional fiber line with AT&T. So there's still that part of their operations. The business side would be hopefully serviced.
Any questions on the upgrade? Your second item is fire suppression system.
Yes, currently we do not employ a fire suppression system for the data center and the to-be-constructed emergency operations center. This capital request from the IT department is for a clean agent suppression system, which will not cause damage to sensitive electronic equipment. In addition, it's rapidly deployed, safe for breathing, and does not obscure vision in the event of a fire. The solution is supported by the fire chief for both the server room and emergency operations center, which is going to be next door to the server room right now.
Okay.
Because they're adjoining, they would be able to leverage the deployment of this equipment so that it's one package instead of two different packages of fire suppression.
It appears that that price excluded a lot of the damper work
Yeah.
and switching. Are we doing that in-house, or is that, or did you make an allowance for that in your capital request?
I was basing it off the price they had given us, so
Okay.
we would have to look into existing lines if we needed some additional work in there.
All right. Obviously, both of these would go out to bid if they were approved by the board.
Correct.
I just have one quick question regarding this fire suppression system. One, is this something that the firefighters would need specific training in order to carry
No.
out? And
It's automatic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's automatic.
It's automatic.
it's an automatic, just like, it used to be a Halon system for electronics. They've moved away from Halon to a different system because Halon would take oxygen out of the space. There's no training for the fire department.
And secondly, is this a system that is currently in use in other towns?
It's in use, in speaking to the Stuart White Company, it's not only in use in other towns, it's pretty much the de facto for data centers now. They also do the cell phone tower data rooms. Anywhere where there's a battery and computer equipment, this clean agent is being deployed now.
And are there any downsides to actually using this particular solution?
The cost versus something else, but you would recoup that should you have a fire event, and if you had sprinklers, it would damage all the equipment, and that would have to be replaced. So it would pretty much pay for itself in that eventuality.
Yeah, it's standard, all electronic, all data storage areas, all facilities that are heavy in electronics. In the olden days, shall we
Yeah.
say, used to use the Halon system. You can't put those type of fires out with water. You just, might as well just take an axe to the equipment.
Right.
That's why they developed these systems, and this is the next generation that goes beyond Halon. And again, it's kind of standard.
But it would be housed in a building
No,
in
it's-
which there would be both a sprinkler system and
No,
this?
there's
it's-
there's
they're
no
separate.
sprinkler system at all in the space.
Okay.
Right.
In that space, but in the building there is?
In the building it is, because the
Right.
building sprinkler system would be controlling, with water, is controlling other types of fires in storage areas, what have you.
Right.
In electronic areas, you don't use water.
But this electronic space is in the basement, and there are floors up above it? I guess I'm concerned that if
is.
sprinklers are deployed up above it, that could get down to where the
It
actual
would. There
electronics
is, I have been told, and I don't know, a slight lean to that building so that most of the water wouldn't flow in the direction of the room where that equipment is housed currently.
are. So
But this is
the
more
saving
for the-
grace is that the building leans?
Yeah. This is more for the eventuality that there is an incident in either of those rooms, that we wouldn't lose that equipment. If we're looking at it, at the entire building at that point, we're at the mercy of where the fire started. And thankfully, we're very close to the fire department, so that's very helpful.
Anything else for Alex?
One question.
Sure.
Diane's more of an IT person. She's unfortunately not here yet, but I hear a lot, we all hear a lot about it in the news, and frankly, I hear it at my employer a lot about, security hacks, people trying to get into your system, right, through your firewall and stuff. So are our firewalls, do you believe, sufficient enough? They don't need upgrading or anything?
We are nearing probably the end of life of our firewall, which at some point, it'll either be replaced through existing lines or we'll come back here and request it. But currently, it is up to date on its maintenance and subscription. And we're actually adding additional security that works with the firewall, that is a client on the individual computers that talks to the firewall and will let the firewall know that this file is bad. And then it assists the firewall in blocking that from then on.
Right.
But currently, the firewall is operating and under subscription and is a quality
We've
component.
had
in
no
our
significant invasions.
We have had no ransomware events. As most places do, we have some things get downloaded from time to time on people's computers
Right.
that are files that need to be cleaned because they're adware or something along those lines. But
Right.
to this point, we've had no
Okay.
major intrusion events,
Thank you.
and we'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah, your predecessor was putting some software in place because we know a lot of that comes in through email.
Correct.
He had a program that he was going to use to train,
Yeah,
for
and-
lack of a better word of describing it.
Yeah, and we're still using that program. It sends out an email that looks suspicious, and whoever clicks on it, it automates a training process for them so that they can in the future learn to evaluate their emails better to see, oh, this said it's from Google, but when you hover your mouse over it, you're actually seeing that the address doesn't go to Google. And those are just little tips and tricks that you have to be taught that aren't ingrained in somebody using their email. But we have that in place. We've added some additional layers of protection for our email to filter outgoing links. We've added some additional layers to our desktops to protect them from ransomware and any future security intrusions.
Any other board members?
I just wanted to share something about Alex for everybody. When Mr. Bennett retired, Bill spent a lot of years with us, did a great job. Ed embarked upon a very diligent interview process. And during the interview process, we interviewed a lot of high-powered IT professionals. So in the end, we hired Alex. So one of the people who didn't get the job called me and said, Mr. Frieda, did I do anything wrong at the interview? This is a high-powered IT professional. And we said no, and we told him who we hired. We hired Alex. And he paused. Now I understand. You hired the best person possible. And if you hired Alex, I understand why I didn't get the job. Now since then, this man has done a remarkable job, interfacing with the department heads, interfacing with the staff, even personally coming on help desk issues. He's solved problems for us. So I wanted to publicly, Alex, tell you that I personally appreciate your efforts here, as
you.
does Ed. Thank you for the great job you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice
Alex.
compliment.
Thanks.
I just had two minor bookkeeping issues. Oh, no, no,
No, no,
I'm sorry.
no.
For our fine finance director, Mr. Swinkowski. Of course, the budget booklet that we have does not reflect the handwritten numbers that we received from him. The number, just on that one line on the muni
Munis?
line. So just,
What are you saying?
well, page 25 of our budget book says that the under muni it's going from 36 to 40,000, and he wrote in here 37,400.
Yeah, I changed it because I know during the year we had, every once in a while, we have an issue that comes up, so
You bumped it.
we bump it. I bumped it up a
Okay,
little.
yeah, nothing, not too bad there.
No.
My request would be on the capital page. Could you separate the two items that he?
It's in his handout.
Yeah, I know that, but I just want to know if that can be
In the budget.
if that can be done in the budget, in our budget, so we can see the fact that a fire suppression
Yeah, that's
system is
fine.
being added.
That's fine.
And, yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Because right now it's just one line.
Right.
It just
One
says
lump sum.
information technology, and we like to see what the items are.
That's fine. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Finance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If Kelly can give us. I'd like to continue our Saturday morning workshop. Pat, it's good to see you. This is our Blood Bowl presentation. We eat up most of our budget. If you could really explain your position, we'd like to understand it completely so that we can hopefully give you what you've been asking for.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Well, good morning, North Haven Board of Finance members. Today I will be presenting the Board of Education's proposed budget for the 2020-2021 school year. Within this budget proposal, there are no new programs or new positions. And within your budget books, there is a proposed budget explanation sheet. This sheet highlights areas that have significantly increased or decreased and reasons for these changes. I want to preface this presentation by stating that this recommendation is our most realistic budget for the 2020-2021 school year. I recognize that it is not realistic to recommend a 6+% increase, which is where we began this process. In the late fall and throughout the past couple of months, we have spent time with building principals and department directors to reduce wherever possible while ensuring that we are meeting all obligations and staying true to our district's mission. This work led right up to the Board of Education's last budget workshop, where $30,000 was eliminated to correct for a couple misbudgeted areas. This was not an easy exercise to accomplish. Special education is the most unpredictable and fluid area of the budget because it is dependent on the needs of students. This is the area with the greatest number of variables and is vitally important to project accurately. No matter how accurately we project, the biggest unknown is the amount of money we will receive from the state in the excess cost reimbursement. The budgeting process is one of the most important tasks the district and the Board of Education take on to reach the objectives within our mission statement. Our draft mission statement is as follows. It is the mission of the North Haven Public Schools in collaboration with students, parents, and community to develop responsible, educated, and productive global citizens who can thrive in an ever-changing digital world. And the vision statement focuses on tomorrow and the expectations the Board of Education has for all students. As a result of their experiences in the North Haven Public Schools, every student will acquire the skills necessary to meet the demands of the 21st century and leave the district college and career ready. In pursuing this mission and vision, we believe we must provide opportunities for all students to independently, collaboratively, and creatively solve rigorous everyday problems, honor and value empathy and compassion for all individuals throughout our diverse community, support all students in making strong and positive contributions to their community, provide all students with a safe learning environment to explore their strengths and vulnerabilities to develop self-worth, and support each other in times of challenge. In this pursuit, we are incredibly sensitive to both the broad educational needs of our students and the town's resources we are expending to address those needs. In creating this budget recommendation, we were committed to maintaining these priorities. Maintain the district's focus on improving achievement for all students, meet all contractual obligations, meet the new 2023 graduation requirements, address the social and emotional needs of all learners by beginning to increase the level of support services within our schools and district programs, and demonstrating sensitivity to both the broad educational needs of our students as well as the town's resources we are expending to address those needs. The proposed budget provides the following: resources to educate 3,138 students, mental health, nutrition, and medical care to allow students to access instruction, specialized services required for all students to meet their potential, diverse opportunities for students to engage in activities outside of their curricular pursuits, and transportation to and from school. There are many internal and external factors that drive the budget each year. Internally, student enrollment, contractual increases, special education, and medical benefits all play a part. Student enrollment has been rather steady for the past 3 to 4 years. The district's contracts were set for this current fiscal year. However, the district's transportation contract is ending this year, as well as our clerical and professional union contract. Each will be negotiated prior to year's end. We've also reviewed many vendor contracts, especially around student services, to find potential savings. I will review additional savings later in this presentation. Externally, the state of the state and federal education revenue, and state and federal mandates always come into play. As I am sure these type of internal and external factors also play a role and can present challenges for the town when they are budgeting for an upcoming fiscal year. Overall, the state has been rather quiet in regards to mandates, but the big question every year is the district's special education excess cost reimbursement, which plays a huge role in the budgeting process. North Haven's per pupil expenditure, or average cost per student, is ranked 11th out of 24 in our district reference group, which is DIRG D. The district is consistently in the middle of the pack within our DIRG, and as you will see in the next slides, North Haven sees a great return on their investment. North Haven provides their students a strong education at an excellent value. The district has talented teachers and other professionals that dedicate their lives to this work. We wisely utilize our resources to get the most out of our funds, and this dedication and budget savviness is reflected in our accomplishments. So the average per pupil expenditure for DIRG D is $17,146. North Haven spends $162 less per year per student than this average. Our budget would cost the town $506,898 more per year if we spent the average DIRG D per pupil expenditure. We're currently ranked 29th best school district in Connecticut, and only 3 DIRG D districts were recognized in the top 30. The other 2 districts are Old Saybrook, who ranks number 1 in per pupil expenditure within our DIRG, and East Lyme, who is in the middle of the pack with North Haven. North Haven High School was recently named College Board's 10th Annual Advanced Placement District Honor Roll. And additionally, we've been able to provide cutting-edge instructional practices and a wide range of course offerings at the secondary level. For the past 5 years, Teachers College Reading and Writing Program has provided professional development for teachers at all 4 elementary schools. The secondary level offers a wide range of elective offerings, from culinary to computer-assisted design, automotive, and the application of technology across many medias. There's also dual enrollment programs at Gateway Community College, where students can leave high school with college credit. Now, I've always suspected that a quality school system is somehow tied to housing prices. And as you look around Connecticut, you can see that towns that have the highest home values are considered to have a high-quality school system. So I looked into a few studies and discovered that there are strong ties between home values and a quality school system. The study that spoke to me most was conducted by Sayo and Simons. They found that various measures of school quality have a substantial impact on housing prices. And it's not just one measure, such as test scores, that can affect these home values. It can be the programs we offer, class size, or that North Haven is ranked high as an overall school district. So the 2019-2020 approved budget is $54,590,313. The Board of Education's proposed budget for the 2020-2021 school year is $57,524,245. The requested increase for the 2020-2021 school year is $2,933,932. This reflects a 5.4% increase. I recognize that this increase is higher than in past years. However, as you will see in the upcoming slides, that the increase will meet our contractual obligations, healthcare benefits, and tuition increases for special education. There are no new programs or positions included within this increase. We have worked hard on the front end to present a reasonable and respectful budget. The budget increase has been significantly reduced prior to this presentation by eliminating positions, utilizing instructional supplies more efficiently, and reducing facilities and IT budget lines. Honestly, I really have no intention of requesting this high of an increase in the future. However, it is my responsibility to maintain the services that are in place within the district, and this increase will do just that. The major drivers to the budget are included in your budget books. The page is titled Budget Overview. I believe it's in blue. These areas total a 6.2% increase, which is significantly higher than the recommended increase of 5.4%. For reference, 87.7% of the total budget is committed to salaries, benefits, transportation, and tuition. As we look at contractual wage increases, there is a 2.5% step up, which is an additional $1,364,663. And as it stands, North Haven's average teacher salary is $68,853. This is below the DIRG D average of $70,924. And just for reference, some local DIRG D districts are Branford, Wallingford, Clinton, Old Saybrook, Rocky Hill, Southington, Milford, and Shelton. And to add a little more perspective to teacher salary, North Haven currently ranks 18th out of 24 within our DIRG for initial teacher salary, and 17th out of 24 for maximum teacher salary. Our initial projections for the renewal of our healthcare benefits was 6%. However, it increased significantly to 12.8% due to numerous and rather substantial claims. This 12.8% increase equates to $964,000. Special education saw a 1.2% increase due to out-of-district tuitions and transportation increases. The professional tech services line also grew to meet the needs of students who require additional support. As I stated earlier in the presentation, we've taken significant steps in order to reduce the overall increase while still maintaining a high quality services to all students. The administrative staff has been reconfigured in order to eliminate an assistant principal position at the middle school. We have also eliminated a district coordinator position. The elimination of these positions, as well as potential retirements, gave us approximately $315,000 in savings. We were able to reduce our utility costs by $50,000 based on historical data around our natural gas usage. This current school year, the district is contracting out speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists through Cheshire Fitness Zone. These services cost the district $322,000 annually. Beginning next school year, we will hire an occupational therapist and 2 speech and language pathologists. These hires will create an estimated savings of $160,000. Additionally, we plan to shift to 1 vendor for registered behavior technicians and behavioral analysts. This shift will represent an estimated savings of $100,000. Lastly, we reduced both facilities and IT budget lines by a total of $82,445. Although these lines were reduced, we recognize and are very grateful that the town is in the process of potentially bonding a $2 million upgrade to security upgrade at all of our schools. In closing, this budget recommendation is higher than I'd hoped to present. However, it is a realistic view of what is needed to operate the school district at a status quo level. In short, a perfect storm is hitting the budget in the form of high health insurance costs and correcting for under budgeting. Through this increase, we honor all contractual obligations and are able to maintain all services. North Haven is known for its commitment to education and the community support of the Board of Education's annual operating budget. I look forward to our collective work as we continue to deliver an exceptional education to the children and families of North Haven. Next, Pam will detail some other significant increases and decreases within the budget. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you do for North Haven.
Thank you, Patrick. Pam, you had something to add?
I would simply direct you to what we provided in your budget books. I hope it was helpful. I know that oftentimes when you're looking through a budget, you'll see really significant changes, whether it's reductions or increases. So I just thought it might be helpful to have a one-page quick overview. So if you have any questions specifically with regard to that, we'll be happy to elaborate, or any other areas of the budget.
We do appreciate the effort you put into your budget. We definitely appreciate looking outside for areas where you could bring some things in-house, create savings. A lot of your budget is personnel and it's body-driven, and there's not a lot we can do about that. But there's a lot of things we can look at around the perimeters. And I did have some questions for you. I'll ask them then after I finish. I'll ask board members if they have any further questions. But, and a lot of it can tie to your little cheat sheet. Under 111P, the pupil personnel, one of the problems we're having in evaluating your budget, obviously, and I'm sure the Board of Ed members had the same thing, is you shifted things between lines, you've moved things from here to there, so it's hard to see the total track history. Having said that, we still dig into it. You moved nursing out, which was like a $442,000 item. What's left in pupil personnel? Because even if I took that balance of dollars and said, you know, it was bodies and it's a 2% increase, I'm only showing like, you know, $40,000, but your delta is like $156,000.
The increase in total, you're saying, is
Yeah.
156?
After you shift your nursing out of it,
Right.
the delta is
Still a
286.
significant increase.
When I would have expected the delta to be like 40.
Be happy to
So there's
address
something
it.
else in there, and I just
Yeah.
don't know what else is in there, and I
That's
want to have a clear understanding of what it
Sure.
is.
First, I would just like to preface it by saying you are going to see adjustments in account codes, and part of that is the state reporting. When I arrived here, excuse me, and we completed the big, it used to be called the EDO-01 report, it's now the EFS report in August, you have to map your accounts to very specific areas of there. So we've been tweaking that. So I apologize for that up
No,
front.
that's fine.
The nurses were removed because they are not our certified staff. So the code 111 is certified. By removing that, when we get to pupil personnel, there is an additional position in there, and that was the offset from our, it's a speech position. It's the
Okay.
offset from removing.
Excuse me, can we allow Pam to please speak?
Attorney, sorry, go ahead.
That was the shift from removing a lot of the contracted services we were utilizing to salaries that Patrick spoke about.
Yep, and it actually would jive with the number then.
And that's exactly what's in there. It's
Okay.
an additional position, and again, you're going to see a little bit of that movement. We'll probably talk about
And
it
I'm going to
again.
hit you with a few more, I'm sure we'll
Yeah,
have the same
that's
thing.
fine.
As example, 112A, AIDS, which expanded roughly 8.1%, 114,000. Was that an added position to special ed or an added position?
I don't believe that was added, so just let me take a quick look there. 112A. Oh, the big significant change there was that we have to add in bus monitors. They were originally, and for quite a few years here, they were expensed to special education. And there was the excess cost fund that we were able to use, but
All right, so the 70-something thousand that you dropped in bus, was that the monitors just shifting into this position then?
pretty much that would
Okay.
make up for the delta there, yes.
You're doing good. That's it. It's just important that
Yeah, of course.
if I'm even entertain such a large increase, I need to make sure I understand really what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
Could you just repeat that, by the way? I was,
Well, they added bus monitors to AIDS, and if you look at the bus transportation, that dropped about 74,000,
I got
so
okay,
it's getting more reasonable as to where it should be.
right.
112F, now you mentioned clerical was under negotiation. Anyone else under negotiation? I'm trying to justify your reserve. If it's just clerical, I wouldn't think,
No, it's our entire UPSU, that's quite a few, it's our entire UPSU union, which is our clerical, but
And-
it's a
And
large.
paraprofessionals.
and paraprofessionals?
Right. It's a
Okay.
large grouping of people. In addition, that there is a small amount in there for anybody who's non-union hourly
Yeah, I
as
wouldn't.
well.
Okay. 113A, the vendor. Your vendor increased due to state minimum wage increase?
Yeah.
Which vendors are those? that
That's
we would
just
use?
Kelly Services, and because of the state law and minimum wage, we had to agree, because we weren't meeting minimum wage with what our
What Kelly was
substitutes were
doing?
being paid through Kelly Services.
I thought we paid a flat rate, Pam. I thought we paid a flat rate per
We
day.
do pay a flat rate, but
Right.
regardless, when you did the math, Kelly Services had to increase what they were paying our substitutes, and subsequently, they were passing that cost on to us.
So what are we paying in the current year for subs?
I believe right now it's $104 a day.
And that'll go to what?
Could be 114, I apologize.
No, that's good.
That is, they immediately increased it on us in October.
So it's 114 a day now?
Right, and then it's going to more than likely increase again when it goes up next October. They haven't given us a final.
And then I
So-
think we average like 6 subs a day.
Hold on a second.
More than that.
So it's 114 now. You're not quite clear what's going up to, but you built something in here, you're saying?
Yes, I did, and I quite frankly hope it's enough. We average probably $10,000 a pay period, a week for substitutes. It's a
substitutions.
very significant line item.
Okay.
And, excuse me, the substitutes are used when? When would we need a substitute teacher?
When
And the difference between certified and non-certified?
So certified are our teachers, our PPS service, like school psychologists, speech and language, those folks. Administrators are certified as well. Our non-certified are our clerical, our custodians, and our paraprofessionals.
So a certified teacher is used when? When an actual teacher is not in? And we're spending $480,000 a year on absenteeism? Is that how I understand it?
Not strictly absenteeism. We do provide some professional development during the day for teachers where they leave the classroom, whether it's a half day or full day, and we need substitutes for that as well.
So do you do a calculation based on how much time off they get in addition to absences? I mean, because they get time off. So do you use that in your formula, time off versus, and then look at history over absences to try to forecast that line?
Somewhat. I think the most, in my experience, the most accurate assessment is historical trends, because every district is a little different. Just because the teacher gets X amount of sick days and personal days doesn't mean they necessarily will use it. So you want to see, are they using 10% of their time off, and what has the historical expense been over the last 3 to 5 years?
So do you look at like the past few years and then maybe take an average or up it a little bit based on how it's performed, you know, how that line's performed?
Yes.
Okay.
So the minimum wage in the state today is $10.
No.
15.
15.
No, it's going up to 15
It's
in
11 now, and
2023.
it's going
It's
up to
trending.
12 next
So
October.
it's
Yeah,
going to go up
that's
to $12 in September of 2020. And are you've accounted for that in
Correct.
this?
And I just want to add something else when we talk about absences. Teachers do go on extended leave for maternity. We also grant paternity leave for our male teachers as well, so that also factors into the time.
Thank you.
114A, I assume, was also an added position where you generated that savings from outside.
Absolutely. That's our OTPT that we were utilizing a tremendous amount of contracted services.
Do you know what
from
that position
outside.
is that you added there? Was that also
It's a PT position.
201L, your pension? I assume that was your.
Just back up 1 second. So those are actually created positions then?
No, they're
It's a shift in
positions.
personnel.
Right, they're positions that we currently contract through Cheshire Fitness Zone that we don't own, that
Right.
we're going to take ownership of this upcoming year. So they're not really new positions, they're just shifted to our watch.
They will be contractual obligations, excuse
will.
me, that will be town employees.
Correct.
So in other words, they're new positions.
I look at it, I look at it as a
I understand
shift.
you're changing the
just
accounting
who
of it, but
owns
you're
the position.
creating
Yes.
a new position that is now a full-time contracted position and an employee of the town of North Haven.
Yes, and removing it from
And removing it as a consulting position. So, and how many of these are there?
3,
3, okay.
2 speech and language, 2 speech and language, and 1
OT.
OT.
You're
Your increase in your pension, I assume that's your ARC?
That's both, we have a defined benefit and a defined contribution pension for various employees, depending upon when they began their employment with the town. And that was one of the areas that did get a bump up in the current year, but it was still projected to be underfunded, so that's why there's an increase. Plus, of course, as salaries increase, the benefit lines that correspond also increase.
201A, sorry.
Yeah, I picked it off the other book. The other big one you have in here, over a 200% increase, your professional, the 3,300 line. Is most of that special ed?
All of it is, yes.
It's all special ed, and it's due to increase in number of bodies
And also
5
what those bodies need too.
with those, okay. Which is, again, is mandated, and there's, and why did we generate a drop in special ed transportation? When the
Special
numbers
ed-
are up.
Special ed transportation is net of our excess cost grant, and looking at the last 2 years, one of the items that was in, let me just get to my transportation. You'll see that regular ed actually reduced a bit as well. One of the items in there was our pre-K, so we had to move that into special education, but not the same line as the out-of-district. The out-of-district is an increase from the current fiscal year, but it is a slight decrease to what we thought we needed. And again, it's solely based on our current outplaced students, and we do try very hard through the special ed department, and we have a wonderful interim special ed director at the moment who really tries to put students outplaced in schools where there perhaps are already students, so it does somewhat save on transportation. So we do a complete spreadsheet calculation on our current students, the current costs. We look to learn if there's projected increases, and then we net it from the excess cost, and that is exactly where we fell to the penny.
So even your tuition, the 5,600, that's all special ed tuition?
Absolutely.
one of the little things, but it just jumped out at me. Your GL went up 20%. I wouldn't expect insurance to jump that much on GL in a year. So did something happen now?
No,
Can we,
actually,
we're sort of rolling through topics, Rich, I
know, but
apologize.
I'm shifting too
Yeah,
because
can we slow down for a second?
okay.
So Patrick mentioned that you budgeted in here a 70% reimbursement for special ed. So Ed, do we have we gotten that, or maybe Patrick or Pam knows?
Yeah,
For this
no.
current year, what are we going to get, do you know?
We have not received it yet. We have completed what is called the CDAC reports for our high-cost students. We submit that to the state, and our first payment, which should be 75% of our total amount, will arrive sometime around February 28th to the first week in March. So we really don't know what we will get. Of course, state statute, they're supposed to follow the formula, but we have not been funded 100% for many years.
You know what we got last year?
Last year, we got about 71%.
Right. And is the bus transportation the same as the pupil? Is it 70 on both pieces?
Tuition and transportation, that affects a high-cost special education student.
Right.
I don't think it ties the same percentage though, does it? I
just said it did.
Transportation, yes.
I thought they
If
gave us
it's-
an increase above that 1 year. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought we had a little spike there one time where they generated us a little bit more money on transportation.
I don't know, I'm just trying to see if the 70% is, a fair, estimate for
Yeah.
next year, that's all.
It's our absolute best guesstimate, and we
Right.
hold our breath on that because we really don't know what the state is going to be able to get. The thing that complicates all of this even further is that we get 75% first week in March. So now we're going to calculate what we think we will have for the full year, and our 25% would arrive sometime in late May.
Right.
The state has in the past, when they discover that there is not enough money to fund
Right.
this fully, even at the 70%, they will make a further adjustment in May, and that sometimes at that point, we could get less
Yeah.
than we had
Right.
anticipated. So we do our best guess.
Okay. I don't know if Nancy had a question on that sheet.
Yeah, I just wanted to back up even a step further than that, since we didn't get a report from the Board of Ed in January. I'm just wondering, where are we with the current budget? Just because it does
I
impact.
did provide a report.
Oh, really? I don't think I saw
We
that.
didn't
So
get it.
where
I
are
don't
we
think we have.
percentage used for this current
I
year?
will tell you.
Because we were up around 93% last time I checked.
I'm sure we're beyond that. And of course, you do recall, we're up to 97.4%, and that includes all our encumbrances for all our salaries.
97.4, and that's encumbrances as well. Okay, great.
So I know we've been warned, I apologize, we're veering off budget a little bit, but I know we've been warned in several letters to the Board of Finance that you were working through a lot of costs and there were some underfunded accounts and so on. So my question, which I think dovetails Nancy's, is are you expecting to meet your budget for the current year?
So yes.
Yeah.
No, no,
That's
no,
why I'm
don't
backing
prompt
up.
them. I want to hear the answer.
Right, I agree.
It will be a very tight. There are so many variables, especially with special education. Currently, our special ed tuition costs have gone up significantly since the start of the year.
Is that because you have additional pupils that you weren't expecting?
Correct.
And the part that makes that a little bit more difficult is that they arrived mid-year. So
They arrived what, mid-year?
Mid-year, so what happens is that you more than likely won't meet that state threshold, so you will receive no reimbursement for
What do you
those
mean? What do you
students.
mean they won't meet the state threshold? What does
The
that mean?
state threshold per state statute is 4.5 times our per pupil expenditure, so you have to spend as a district.
Oh, I see. Because they don't prorate it on you?
No.
Really?
They will prorate the cost, we pay the prorated cost from perhaps January through June for our students.
Right.
And more than likely, that could come to $60,000 to $70,000. So we will not get any kind of excess cost
Right.
grant offset for any balance, because we wouldn't have gotten it anyway unless the balance,
Yeah.
only for the balance over $76,000.
Right.
So at what point do you think that you might need to come before the Board of Finance asking for more money, if necessary, timing-wise?
We
They
are.
just said it's going to be tight. They wouldn't need
Right.
money. But
No,
I know you're
just
asking a question. but-
Just in
think
case,
it's
just in
dependent
case,
on
I'm
what
trying to
we receive
understand
as
timing.
Yeah, I think we are waiting right now. We put in, first we put in a soft freeze, a spending freeze back in
right.
October. We are in a very hard freeze right now where we are basically telling everyone, you can't spend any money because we need to get our hands around what is happening. We have 2 special ed students that we know we have to place within the next couple of weeks, but there is some challenge in where they will be placed, so we don't have exact dollars. So I am thinking that within the next month, we should have that secure, as well as knowing what our excess cost grant is going to be. And that's really the wild card in the entire calculation.
What does a hard freeze mean? Like, how does that affect the students?
As minimally as possible.
The students don't feel an effect of the hard freeze. If there's a need for supplies or whatever it may be, we will purchase those supplies. If snow needs to be removed, snow is removed. However, there is no additional spending whatsoever, only around need.
But what does that mean? What are we stopping or telling people they can't do because of the situation? I guess that's my question.
Professional development.
Professional what?
Professional development for
Development.
teachers, and we look at facilities, only the bare minimum, nothing additional fixed, unless it's emergency or needs to be really bare bones around there.
I mean, you realize they have a $50+ million budget. Even 5 students, and if it's $300,000, you know, I would assume in a $50 million budget, you could find $300,000 if you had to. I understand a lot of yours is
But again, if
driven by
90% of it's
salary.
committed,
It's
yeah.
so challenging. I mean, you would think that, but when you
That's
really
why we
look at
have the
what's
2 of you together.
when you look
Working
at
with
what's
Mr. Friedman.
discretionary, it's been wonderful. I mean, we have I feel a really good working relationship with both Mr. Frieda and Mr. Simkowski. We've been communicating very clearly with our concerns and issues, but your point is exactly correct.
So if I can just
Very little
interject.
discretionary.
And if this board knows it, I apologize, but I have to tell it. So what we're faced with here, and what we're faced with all across the state, is that towns like North Haven, who do a great job on special ed, Simsbury, other districts, and I was with my counterpart in Simsbury at a statewide meeting last week. As special ed has become more of an issue that we as municipal leaders have to support and address and work closely with people like Patrick and Pam. Special ed parents are shopping the different districts, and those that have really good reputations on special ed, they're moving into the districts. And North Haven is a good example. So the unpredictability of it is a byproduct of the success that we've had in dealing with and supporting special education. So it's almost impossible to predict mid-year additions, as Pam is saying. We have an obligation to continue to support it. And I'm on a mission, not only here in North Haven, but at a state level. I'm forming a statewide task force, bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans, mayors, senators, and state reps. And we're going to be addressing this issue. And I was up in Hartford the other day with the governor and other people at the state capitol. And there's going to be some legislation proposed to address this issue on how we reduce the unpredictability. So the good news is we are doing well here on special education. North Haven supports it. These people in this room, the staff, all of the teachers, all of the paraprofessionals, all those who are involved with special ed have done such a good job that we're faced with people in out of district wanting to come to North Haven because of the great job that the school system does. And that is part of the unpredictable model that we're faced with.
Question, what constitutes a special ed student? Is it physical handicap? Is it mental handicap? Learning disabilities? What is a special ed student?
It's a student who's identified with an individual education plan, which is an IEP, and that can fall under a myriad of categories, from emotionally disturbed, intellectually disabled, learning disabled. There's multiple disabilities. There's something called OHI, other health impaired. There's a myriad of different
A
categories.
number of different things. I see.
And how many do we have, Patrick?
It was in the,
46, I thought.
It's gotta be more than that. It's gotta be way more than that.
It's
no,
it's
those are
more,
out of district.
significantly more than
They're
that.
out
Yeah.
of district.
Can I
Those are out of district.
Yeah.
Trying to step in. When you say 46, I believe you mean there's 46 students that are outplaced. correct?
Yeah, those are outplaced
Correct.
But
students
when you
only.
put the amount of students who are considered special needs within the school district, that's
Oh, so there's
substantial.
additional to the 46.
Yeah.
Oh, correct,
Yeah.
yes. The 46 are just the ones who are not currently educated in the district.
Yeah,
I see.
they, over the last,
Oh, back
I want to say 6 to 8 years, North Haven has started bringing more of that, keeping it in-house, providing autism training and such, and moved a lot of our outplacement back. So it was only, it's 40-something, I think, was outplaced.
Right, I was going to say the
Just
number.
39
is
outplaced.
39.
But was that with the additional 5 that were just added to?
That would be, yes.
But there's a lot that we've brought back in. and
We're working to
kept-
create programs in order to bring, number one, the most important thing for any student is we want to keep them in their neighborhood school, in the district here, and be part of our community.
I see.
And in order to do that, we create programs. We have an intensive learning services program, a therapeutic learning services program, at two of our elementary schools that progress up to the middle and high. And these type of programs require additional support than just a classroom teacher. They need a social worker, school psychologist, paraprofessionals. When I spoke earlier regarding RBTs, registered behavioral technicians, and BCBAs, which are board certified behavioral analysts, those people help support our students in making sure they can access their instruction. It's an upfront cost that is sometimes substantial, but in the long run, keeping them here and the cost overall is much less.
Yes, I could see that.
So Patrick, how many in district, please?
I don't know if I have that number on me
I have that
exactly.
either.
Percentage-wise,
Get that back to you.
I'm not
If you
going
don't
to
have
venture,
it, you
yeah, I'm
can
not
have
going to
Pam-
venture a
you can
guess,
have
but
Pam send it to-
I will make sure I get it to
Yeah,
you.
you can have Pam send it.
It is a moving target simply
Right.
because,
200.
It's not a trick question.
200 total?
No, 200 in-house,
Yeah, in-house. Wow.
in that area. Any other questions for Board of Ed?
Yes, I have a few questions.
No, you go first.
Okay, so I absolutely appreciate the time that went into preparing both the one-page cheat sheet as well as all the documentation supporting it, as well as the table listing the BOE administrators that shows not only the budgeted salaries for last year and the proposed for this coming year, as well as the adjusted salaries that took place because there was some changing that took place after the referendum last year. So, but I would just like to point out for those people that are watching at home, the very first line item of the budget that shows the BOA administrators' salaries actually decreasing. I just think that people need to understand that basically all of the administrator salaries increased from last year to this year, not looking at this interim position, with the exception of the two people in front of us, our superintendent and the business manager. And there were two positions, both the IT director and the facilities manager, that actually decreased. I don't know how that's possible with contracts. And one position was actually eliminated, which in this current year cost $127,344. So on average, this $2.5 million line item for BOE administrators, yes, it did decrease by $100,000, but on average, most of the administrators actually experienced an increase in their salary. And on average, the BOE administrators make $134,000 apiece. And again, it ranges from $100,000 to $170,000. But as Patrick pointed out, our teachers make on average about $68,000 a year and experienced only a 1.5% increase in their salaries. So I just think that the people at home need to understand that there is this disparity, and I think that this is something that we really need to be thinking about and addressing.
And I think. we need
And
to
what's the
clarify.
disparity, Nancy?
The disparity in terms of the amount of money that we are spending on administration as opposed to the people who are actually teaching our children. So on an individual basis. And
The only thing I
again,
would like to just clarify,
Sure.
because I don't want anyone to walk away with the wrong idea, our teachers, on average, are not increased by 1.5%.
no, not on average.
No, their increases are significantly more, and why you're seeing 1.5% in our budget is because we had a significant number of people leaving and retiring in the current fiscal year, so it adjusted our salaries down because we were able to recognize some savings, thankfully, in this current budget as a result of those changes. So when you put them all together, and there had to have been, I don't know, I'm
2.5
trying
or
to-
better, so, yeah. but
probably
you-
20 teachers, 25 teachers, that we've had a significant savings. So the overall increase for teachers through the contract is at least a 2% plus step. So I just don't want that to be skewed, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, Nancy, you have to watch how you extrapolate some of the information, because, I mean, that perfect statement you said, if you just looked at the raw data, not understanding what was behind it, you would think that, but it's not. Most, I don't think there's a contract at Board of Ed right now that's not getting at least a 2% increase plus a step.
Correct.
When needed, or when contractually driven. So while, we could always say our administrators are paid more on the Board of Ed side than the town side, as a rule. The step, or the wage increases are kind of uniform across the entire staff, I would think.
Okay, so I'm just going through some of my comments here. Again, I mentioned the administrative costs and the teacher salaries, but at the same time, you've also indicated that there's a decrease in expenditures in textbooks, supplies, and school expenditures in order to accommodate contractual obligations, decrease in program development, decrease in field trips, and decrease in instructional new equipment. So all of those things together, I think are, for me, a source of concern in terms of their impact on the students' experience of their own education. So I just have some concerns about that. And I also have a couple of questions. So one was the cost of the health insurance consultants, plural, and the increase in insurance costs of 12.8%. So how many consultants do we?
I'm sorry, I don't know where
Yeah,
you're
where's that?
reading.
So to aid with self-insurance health fund, I believe it was described in your budget highlights that you had hired consultants, and I believe the self-insurance costs were 12.8%.
Yeah, no, we did not hire consultants. I don't
Yeah.
read it the way you are, but let me just clarify if I may.
Okay.
Our increase in health insurance, since we are self-funded, is a result of what our consultants provide to us. And we do the same thing as the town does. We get a complete breakdown of all the costs associated with what they believe our projected claims will be next year, based on our claim history, based on our enrollment, and fees are added into that. But those fees actually have been reduced. We are in the collaborative with the town.
Okay, so that was my
ACES.
other question. Is
Yeah.
it the exact same
Yep.
consultants? that-
So the 12.8% is primarily, basically, as a result of our high claim history this
Okay,
year.
great. And one other question that I had was, I saw a pretty significant increase in electricity costs.
Yes.
What was that all about?
When I arrived here last March, I had been trying to get through each step. As you know, you had quite a few people in my position
Yes.
last year, and we
Yep.
all know, no matter what the organization is, turnover is not good for any organization, nor is it when you have too many hands in the pot, so to speak. Regardless, I did not recognize that there was a monthly expense that had been ongoing, that the town would make us aware of through our trial balance, and we did not catch up, quite frankly, with our reconciliations until May. And it was like, holy moly, we have a $25,000 monthly expense that had not been hitting our accounts. I can't really explain what happened. All I know is I spoke with Ed, he clarified what the cost was, very legitimate. We panicked a little in our budget last year, but we made it work. Going into this year, obviously, it was not picked up in our current budget, so we're struggling with that underfunding as well. and we had to make it right for next year, and they are all very legitimate costs.
Pam, I looked at, Mike had the, your December report, and it looked to me like you're only running 38,000 over on that item through the halfway point of this current year.
Yeah, but I think you have to realize, and that's the difference between the town budget and the board budget. We don't have a lot going on in our schools in July and August, so we're really, and December is really a short month as far as utilizing utilities. So we can't really look at it as though it should be half at that
Right.
point. January through June is when you really will see a lot of significant impact
Right.
on all our expenses.
I want to go back just for a second to health insurance. I know Nancy brought up for a second. So the 964, I think the comment in one of these spots was based on the renewal. Then I know you just said it was based on your actual history. So is that a firm number? Because I know in the past, and I know we're self-insured now, it's a little different, but in the past when we've had budget meetings, we've gotten, both for the town, by the way, and the Board of Ed, we've gotten an estimate, and then that tends to get refined, and sometimes it goes up, but often goes down. So please let us know what the certainty of that number is.
I too have experienced the same thing with health insurance renewals, and when we first got this one, I felt the same way. It's like, okay, this is terrible, but hopefully it's going to go down. I have had numerous conversations over the last 6 weeks with our insurance consultants, and because our claims have not been great, they don't really anticipate much of a reduction. Having said that, I did go to our insurance collaborative meeting earlier this week, and our claims for the Board of Ed, the town's been really good, but the Board of Ed has actually kind of come down in the last month. I don't know if it's enough for us to really see any reduction in that renewal. I'm not very confident there will be. If it is, I think it's going to be minimal, but we're working on it. I mean, it's not, I was originally told 3 weeks ago, do not change that number. I believe
Right.
it's not going to change.
Can they tell us based on, I know we only have a short history here with the town, but maybe with other towns, whether or not our increase last year was a spike in abnormality? Maybe we just had a lot more claims last year for whatever reason, and people get sick, right? And that's
Yeah, we've had some
It's often
major
the-
claims.
I was going to say, it's often the big claims that get you, right? Unfortunately, someone gets, badly ill and that's what hurts you, right? So is there a way to know or judge whether or not last year was unusually high and that next year should, revert more to the norm, if you will?
And that is part of what they analyze. I mean, the insurance companies do that. They're looking at trends. They have all the information. We haven't moved away from Anthem, so all the information is there. So
Right,
yes,
yeah.
to your point,
They're
they
still
are
administering the
reviewing
plan,
it.
right.
I will tell you, as you probably know, I've been with a couple of other districts and I've been on the town side, and it's been my experience where you can have increases anywhere from 5%. In my last district, we started our year with a 25% increase. So while this is painful, I have seen much worse. And I really do believe, I don't love being self-funded because of the risk, but I will tell you, you are saving money. I really do think it's a win-win.
No, I'm not questioning the model. I just want to look at the increase.
And you are going to have some years where that's just what happens. And I don't think our high claims, while they may have leveled off, based on what I'm seeing, I really don't think they're going away anytime soon.
Michael, you had something?
Why, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see both of you this morning. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Ms. Mangini, I have to say, we absolutely love your presentation. I love the way that you communicate all the issues before us. You are superb at your position as far as our perspective goes, and
Thank you.
we just hope you stay with us until retirement.
I won't take offense to that.
And Mr. Sturck here, I want to say that was one of the better presentations we've had for the Board of Ed budget at this workshop. It was also
For what he's asking, it better be.
it was also the speediest
Good point.
presentation ever. So
I'm straight to the point, so.
So if I or anyone here asks about something you've previously explained, that's the reason. It was just, there was a lot, and it came quick.
Yep.
You know, here we are, we look at things from a cost-benefit analysis a lot of the time. So a lot of our questions to you are not always financial. We try to realize or ask the question, do our dollars and cents make sense? And to some extent, there can be a law of diminishing returns, and that is can you get the benefits of a 3.5% budget with just an additional expense of 3%? What does that additional 0.5% do in terms of quality and having you reach your goals and your mission and everyone's desire for an excellent education in all respects in town? So that's how we look at it, and that's why, for instance, in future years, not this year, but future years, I'll be asking questions about how outside agencies rate our town in terms of education. So, you know, there's rating agencies, and some can be explained away in different ways. But eventually, we have to pay attention to the way we're measured. And to some extent, the money that we spend does directly correlate, and in some cases not. So that's the balance that we always, or the lens that we always look through within our desire here to keep things as affordable to the taxpayer as possible. So I promise, though, to be an equal opportunity scrutinist, that I was very tough on Dr. Cronin, and so welcome to the job.
Thank you.
It's fair.
That was just his opening statement.
Yes. So and I look at the large items. Okay, so the teacher contract here. What you say it's approximately a 2% cost of living, if you want to call it that, increase plus step where necessary. What year is that contract in now?
It will expire June 30th of 2022, so we're in year 2.
Year 2 of a 4-year.
Year 1, I'm sorry, year 1 of a 3.
Year 1 of a 3.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are you taking notes, Mr. Chairman? Yeah. And
Every word you say, Mike.
Good thing it's recorded.
the bus contract is coming to an end.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're going to ask something else about the bus contracts? I did have a question.
Yeah, I did, right now.
Who's negotiating the bus contract?
It's a bid item.
No, I asked who's negotiating the bus contract.
Pam, myself, Board of Education member.
Okay. This has come up at previous budget meetings. Mike and I in particular have asked questions about this. I think, to summarize it, we're sort of surprised at how high the special ed bus transportation is, and I guess doing a little math here, because I think the reimbursement for next year's budget at $385, and you've got another $1.2 million, so call it ballpark $1.5 million in special ed bus transportation, which is nearly as much, not quite, as the regular transportation for the entire town. Honestly, we're so concerned about it that, the Board of Finance has a line item in the budget for special audits. It's like $5,000 or something they get, right? 10,000.
And we are auditing
and we've
that
requested
contract.
that Ed hire someone to audit the contract. Look, it's not to say that there's something wrong. I think it's more to help us understand why it is that we're spending that much money. I know last year we got quite a bit of information. I got information on the routes and the schools we're going to. A lot of them are ACEs, I know. And then the transportation within the town and out of the town. So I guess I would just say to please pay particular attention when you negotiate it, because I guess for us, and please feel free to comment, we don't really follow how it could cost that much money to transport, the 39 outplaced and then the ones that are in town that are going between schools.
Tim and I both have read that contract, and it just doesn't jive with us. does not make sense to us, that the dollars could be there. And again, that's why we've asked the finance director to contract with someone just to go through that line item. It just stands out.
I will tell you that Patrick and I have reviewed it recently, and I
Yesterday.
did share with him my concerns because it's, I think it's just, it can be tightened, it can be a little bit clearer, but I will tell you, again, I've been with quite a few other districts, and this isn't an unusual amount of money. It's a lot of money, and I know that Dr. Cronin, last year I was here sitting in, and I do recall that he did explain the nuances of transporting special education students, that sometimes you need special vehicles, you need to have
Right.
a monitor or an aide on that bus, so it does get very costly. And I think we shared with you, and if we haven't, we will, that we did start to participate again in another collaborative with ACES, because as Mr. Frieda mentioned, with special education costs statewide in looking into the funding of it, we here in our local area of Greater New Haven that we use ACES as our RESC are also struggling with, are there better ways of doing this? So with the transportation, we are in a collaborative. We do have a few students being transported through that agreement. Actually, Jen Stewart and I just looked at that a couple of days ago. We're not really convinced we're saving money. We think it just might be controlling increase in costs. So we're going to be monitoring that very closely. But to your point, yes, we are going to be a lot more careful with the language in the
When does
upcoming
ACES
contract.
transport versus the town? Because they do have buses, I do see them around. I know we're sending kids to ACES schools.
Right.
Last year, we had a couple last year, honestly, that were going to the two schools at the bottom of Skiff Street, which literally, is across Whitney Avenue from the town. But anyway, when does ACES transport versus us?
We have agreed to have them transport. We have, I think, 3 students that that are traveling to Orange. And I think it's when we have more than one, but if you don't mind, I'm going to just defer to Ms.
Sure, go
Stewart.
ahead.
So we have students that use the ACES transportation that go to Wallingford and Orange and Hampton. And the rest is through M&J. Because sometimes M&J will give us a better price.
Yeah.
And if we have more than one student going on that route, we try to put them all together on one bus to go to that school. But like Pam said, we currently have 6 students that we use with the ACES Collaborative for transportation right now. Everything else is through M&J.
Right.
I guess we're on the same page as you are. We're also
Right.
looking very
Okay.
closely at all of that.
Thank you.
Staying on the same transportation vein, I understand our regular transportation is based against time. The longer the bus is out, the more it costs. My question is what happened to bus stops? We used to walk to the corner, and there would be 20 of us. Now you follow a bus and it stops at every house, and that is all equated to time.
It is. Safety
Safety
of the students matter the most, and asking them to walk down certain streets without sidewalks or whatever it may be. And sometimes we accommodate families as well if they're not feeling safe having their students walk down a certain street or even cross the street for that matter. So it does increase the amount of stops and the amount of time.
I just think, a little exercise in the child would wouldn't hurt.
Jim, I don't disagree with you, but having 2 young boys who are now in high school, who actually drive now, I have to admit, but when they were taking the bus, we're on a small cul-de-sac. They were supposed to be, listen, the bus stop should be right in front of my house because we're at the intersection of the 2 streets, okay? But the bus actually stopped at 4 different stops. Try telling a kid these days you have to walk 2 houses down the street, you're in for a fight. Maybe it's the lesser of 2 evils, and I don't disagree with you, but personally, I'm just speaking my own, that's the fight you're in for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's more elementary school, because I'm in a cul-de-sac and it would stop. But now that my daughter's in high school, she's at an intersection, so she has to walk. Well, we take her to the bus stop. She doesn't want to walk. And if I work at home, I get a text, can you pick me up? But she is at an intersection, so a lot of it, and I've been behind Spring Road too, and they're all elementary students. So it's mainly elementary students,
Correct.
and as they get older, because middle school and high school are together, they're at those stops.
Okay, thanks, I didn't know that.
See, we walk to school both ways uphill.
Uphill.
With no shoes, right, in the snow? Right? That's the old saying, no shoes in the
I had to
snow.
walk half a mile.
I used to walk to school. Michael, you had something else?
Yes. Just to backtrack just a tiny bit here, the current budget, the current fiscal year, you've rightfully warned us ahead of time about the situation. And today you said that some of this budget increase is to offset some underfunding that's occurred in the current budget. Aside from the special ed, what areas were under budgeted and how have you addressed those?
So there are some areas at the district level around central office accounts, such as district-wide PD, even copy paper, that was unfortunately a victim of, I think, 3 to 4 people having their hands in the budget and just last year and not
Right, I
picking
know,
up on that.
I
So-
know it was a transition year, so.
So those are some areas that we need to put back into play this year.
Okay,
And we're making do by taking from other areas.
yeah. We feel the stress. This year, the medical situation now, Mr. Frieda, is our group going to meet at some point?
Probably. It will probably be later this month, so. But Brown & Brown has really done all the research right now. Pam is right, they've given her a hard number. We forecasted 6% on the town side, and we will have one meeting, yes.
The hard number they got was 12.8%?
12.8, right.
That, okay, because last year, the number came in much lower than originally forecast. And do you think that there's going to be any improvement of that number?
Well, based on what Pam just said, she's gone back 2 or 3 times with Brown & Brown, and they've told her to keep the number in, so that's where we're at right now. Now, but when we look at the insurance model, there's always, ladies and gentlemen, a 13-month look back. So Pam alluded to it a few moments ago, that the last month may have come in favorable. Whether or not that's going to have an overall impact on mitigating the 12.8%, that's undetermined right now, so.
But we could be one more month down the road and
Yes.
something can happen, and if it is, we'll be happy to take it right off your budget.
Or
Thanks.
leave it in and we can just put more in our health insurance trust fund.
As I said, we'd be happy to take it right off your budget.
Hey, I tried.
I have to agree with you there, Pam.
Yes, Ed and I are a little worried about that.
Yeah, that 12.8, which is out of your control, is, that's a big part of the overall increase here.
Yes.
And that,
That and special ed are the two driving factors in this, and they're exceptionally large requests.
yeah. So overall here, 5.4% of what was last year a $54 million allocation to education. If the public can't stomach that, if somehow and it is much larger than anything we've seen in the last few years, could you help us in some way to find ways of reducing that?
So there are always ways, but it will be impactful.
We don't cut you line by line, but we estimate what reductions could occur, and we just work off the big number. And it seems like that would be very difficult to overcome in terms of tax revenue and other sources. So.
I think the only emphasis we would place
that's a
is
tough
that while Patrick commented it would be impactful, I think you recognize the only place we would have to go is staffing at this point. I mean, I think, we've gone back to the schools already to reduce their discretionary spending accounts. There was nowhere else, because we were at 6.4 to start. So we've already really started to, not started. we've
All right,
already
well, we
got-
come up with a judgment of what we believe is feasible and tolerable for the taxpayer.
Right.
So
We
that's-
understand that completely.
And by the way, we're here for service for you. We're preparing you for 2 public hearings in April and May.
Thank you.
So you will hear it in other terms from the public.
Of course.
Well, again, thank you. What is the biggest challenge this year for you in year two?
Still year one. Still year one.
Is it still, yes, I
Still
guess
year
it's
one. March 4th would be year one.
Yeah, what, financial or non-financial? I mean, you know, we always want to improve as a school district versus our peers, and Dr. Cronin always lately was stressing the idea of focusing on the most challenging situations in terms of students, of students that who were performing below.
The lower 25%,
Yeah.
as he would call it, yeah.
So, did you want to put together like and you did in some ways in your mission and so forth, but you seem to cover everything. What are you focusing on most?
So, within district, supporting the social and emotional needs of students. Students are coming to us with a myriad of needs, more so now than ever before. And we need to have staffing trained and capable of meeting the needs of these students in a social and emotional capacity. So that has really been the focus. We currently have an SEL task force within district that Jennifer Stewart is tackling to see how it fits in, this learning fits in our district. Because there are a lot of prescriptive programs out there right now, and it's not really one size fit all. North Haven isn't the same as every other town. So we really want to make sure that we're making some educated decisions with teachers and other professionals involved in making those decisions. And that's really been a focus of this year for us. And it drove, to tell you the truth, before we really sat down and looked at the numbers of this budget, our goal was to really move forward, bringing in additional social workers and school psychologists to help support some of our in-district programs, as well as support some of our, the general student population in these needs. And that's the plan for the future, is to really build up our staffing around there. And within this year's budget, we can do some twisting and some turning of staff and different responsibilities and whatnot to accommodate that. But that's really been a focus of ours.
Excellent. That's very commendable. However, I do share Ms. Barrett's concern about some of the numbers that have been reduced, but hopefully you can do more with less.
We've worked hand in hand with department directors and principals
Okay.
to ensure that we are not jeopardizing and continuing to offer really great services for our students.
Very good.
Thank you. Tim, do you have anything else?
Pam, sorry, I didn't catch it. For 201D, major medical, $64,000. Was that a reclass? Because it doesn't show an increase.
Actually, that was some advice from a finance director here in town. Ed and I had been talking, and I agree with him. He feels that we should start to carve out our fees and anything that really shouldn't be put into the self-insured trust fund. And I haven't done it completely because that larger amount on the top still has our ACES fees and our Brown and Brown fees. But what you're seeing at $64,000 there includes we have a special policy agreement, health insurance policy agreement with our custodial staff that are retired. We also have, in one union contract, we still pay a stipend to people who don't take our insurance. And there's also some fees to a company that manages our FSA that we offer. So I thought Ed's advice was very good advice, so we made the first step to remove it. But it's not a new expense, it's just being better recognized.
My last question, which maybe is for Anita, or the board in general, is I think the board's recognized for a long time now that the school population's been declining. In fact, I think this is the first year that it's actually stabilized. It's down 1,000 kids over the last couple of years, and I somehow this morning in my home office dug up some numbers from 2006, 7, 8, and 9. I didn't do all the schools, but just for your information, in those 4 years, the population of Montauk averaged 472 kids. The budget you have here shows there's 276 enrolled for next year. And the total school population for that period of time averaged 3,879. We are going to be at 3,137 for next year, so about 740, give or take, less. So I've asked this question before. It's simply, long-range planning. Have we looked at whether or not our our schools are sized properly for the number of kids we're serving?
Say that again, are schools sized properly?
Meaning, do we have excess capacity in the school system for the number of kids we're serving?
Are there extra classrooms? That could go more to our superintendent and staff.
Okay.
What's happening is as we have more children with special needs, and again, to go to Jim's question later, and that special need could be a learning disability, could be English as a second language, and please correct me at any point, anyone that I'm wrong. We are now taking some of those rooms that may have been empty, and we're using those rooms to do that one-on-one that child needs, or if a special ed teacher or parent needs to take a student out of the classroom, or two students, or the reading consultant to look at the words, look at what they have to teach, they're using their other rooms. You're also asking me in a way, are we at overcapacity with teachers or para or something because of education or of the number of our students going down? I can tell you no. If anything, I think, as Patrick alluded to earlier, we need more. We need more social workers. We actually probably need more people to help our student population just based on how everything has changed with the emotional and mental.
That question actually came up last year because we're up in terms of the total number of educators and paraprofessionals, but I was actually alluding to, can we get by with one less school?
We cannot get by with one less school.
Why not?
Having to absorb, let's say, Monterey students, you brought that up, as declining enrollment. That's from, what, 06, 07, you said around that time?
That was you have to remember, there was a
Yeah, I know there was
redistricting back at that point.
Yes, there was.
It was around 2006.
Yes.
I remember that vividly because Montauk was busting at the seams, and after
Right.
my daughter was in kindergarten or first grade, they made that decision. So that's part of it.
Right.
So, Ridge Road, Green Acres, they are, I mean, I could speak personally from Ridge Road busting at the seams. I was willing to pass out ladders when I was principal there. We could go teach on the roof, but Green Acres is equally the same, along with the district-wide pre-K program. Clintonville and Montauk, although are smaller in number that are there, Clintonville has seen a nice growth in the last few years in their kindergarten classes. They have people moving in much at a higher rate than any other school district in our town. So I don't believe it's feasible at this point to take a school out of play.
Right.
Well, to add to what Tim's saying, wouldn't consolidation be a thought? I mean, if you can't do away with the school, you can consolidate the two.
How so?
Oh, well, like a Ridge Road is 200 people, and Green Acres.
Well,
That doesn't include the ID, though. They have
Ridge Road has about
400.
380 students there, and Green Acres has about the same, in addition to our pre-K program. That's
But I'm thinking a new facility where Green Acres' footprint is today.
So
expanding that to accommodate the additional students.
during our last budget workshop, Anita had mentioned that we're going to put together an elementary school building committee to take a look, because our buildings are getting old as well. Ridge is 73 years old, I believe now. So we do need to take a look at the buildings themselves as well as the makeup of the building. So that's forthcoming.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something outside this workshop, and it's something we'd be interested in consulting with your people too.
And I think, as part of an extension of that, I've been involved with building utilization studies in the past too, which I think is what Tim is speaking to. And I will say, though, I'm surprised that you have over 700 reduction in enrollment, because since I've been here and I've looked at the last few years, I've even commented that I've been very impressed that your enrollment has actually leveled, whereas most districts in the state are significantly reducing. So I think I would be very careful moving forward. I think perhaps merging and considering a new building is a wonderful idea at some point in the future, but I think I would just move cautiously. And there are experts out there that can really guide us.
I think it's stabilized just the last year. I mean, have been coming down. Maybe we hit that level because, it's pointed out somewhere I read in the last day or so that, the average age in town has been going up. It's one of the issues in town, which means you have less kids, obviously. And that changes eventually at some point. But
More families graduating and leaving the state and not staying here.
Right.
I just have one more question. You brought up the point of the 4 elementary schools. Of course, we have a brand-new middle school and a relatively new high school. Are there any infrastructure concerns about the 4 elementary schools, since they are older buildings, boilers, leaking roofs, any of those things that we need to be aware of?
Yes, some of it is, actually, all of it is listed in our capital
Yeah.
plan in
Okay.
the back, but there are
But
emergencies.
immediate concerns.
Not immediate. I mean, the roofs on all 4 elementary schools, we're consistently putting Band-Aids on them. But the Band-Aids are working. We're just worried about throwing good money away at bad problems, or
Right.
whatever that saying goes.
They budgeted in the 5-year plan for new roofs, I think, in all the schools in back there.
Right, well, but if we're about to invest $2 million in increased security, I imagine that would in fact impact, some of the structure of the building as well, new doors and the like. So I'm just wondering, are there any things that need to be done in advance of that?
No.
Okay.
Good question.
Board members good?
No, I have a question.
One question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
You sure? All right, so I think there's a reduction in police and fire. So what is that? Is that them coming into the schools to do fire drill,
No, that's primarily our officers at each school. And I had commented at the board meeting that the police chief was very patient with me back in May and June and really explained how the funding of those officers works, because it was a little bit different from what I anticipated.
So that's really what it is?
And actually, yes, looking at last year and based on the first invoices we received from the police department this year, I think we were slightly over budgeted in that area, so we took the liberty
Okay,
of
so
reducing
how is
it.
that working out? I've already seen I get your emails. So how is that working out? Because I was definitely a supporter of that, and when they were voting, I was sitting a bunch of people who were giving me a hard time, but how is that working out? I mean, from the emails that I'm seeing, we've had situations, things have been handled, so maybe just an update for people who don't know what's going on or have kids in the school. How is that working out?
So overall, the SROs have become a fabric within the buildings. From the 4 elementary schools and the middle school, that's where they were newly placed, and each of those SROs, how Chief McLaughlin had placed them there, could not be any better fit for the personality and the staff at those schools. You see them with kids at lunch. You see them walking the buildings inside and out from day to day, every day. The gentleman at Ridge Road, Vinny, teases me he gets 20,000 steps a day just walking the campus, and so they are very active at the middle school. Officer De Palma I don't know how he can be in the places he's in and beat me from place to place when I'm in the building. So they are creating great relationships with kids, great relationships with staff, as well as the main duty is keeping our building safe, and they're doing that as well. So.
Okay. Another question. So I see textbooks are going up, but I know from having children in the school, a lot of stuff is online. Most stuff is online. So is the textbook more like elementary level, or is it, just because I know that my kid's always on her Google Chrome doing, assignments and everything is there. So that's my first question. Is there anything technology more that we need to support this? And this is going to be wild, but a few people have asked me this question. Have you ever thought of, when there's no school, having virtual, since they all have, they all have their Chromebooks for the most part. I'm not really sure about the elementary level, but doing anything with that.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, there are schools that have that, yeah. Even Sacred Heart, they do as well. So to answer your first question, we're really in good shape with technology at this point with our students, and it's really the work now is really integrating it into the instruction. So it's not just simply like a word processor or taking the place of writing on a piece of paper. Right? Teachers are now integrating into their instruction every day. So that is the key there. We actually have a part-time technology integration teacher, per se, that goes around and helps with this. And as far as the snow day instruction, we haven't really had that discussion. It might be something that we can talk about in the future. We do have one-to-one Chromebooks for grades 3 through 12, so we'd have to find something interesting for our K1 and 2s. but it could be a discussion in the future, sure.
Yeah, it's just the thought. I mean, with technology and the way it is, and especially we've come so far, getting wireless in the buildings, in the past few years, just throwing it out there. But is there anything that you see as a need for technology, or right now we're pretty good?
So I think we're very good. We've grown a lot in the last 2 years with our IT director, Ms. Kozlowski. She's really brought us kind of to the new age with our, like I said, the one-to-one with the Google Suite that we use with all the students now, the access they have. So I think we're in very good shape.
Good to hear.
Yeah, I have one more question for you, Patrick. You mentioned snow days. There was 2 snowstorms in December, and one of which you closed the schools. Now, the area towns such as New Haven, the Valley, all of the hills, they had 1 to 2 hour delays. So what criteria do you use to close the schools? Because I understand, well, I could attest it. 9 o'clock in the morning, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
That school day that you closed.
So my morning starts at about 4 a.m. and I get on the phone with Mr. Diana, our director of facilities, and he's out driving the town, talking to Public Works and talking to the police department. We get an idea how the roads are at that point. And then we actually, superintendents have a weather expert that we have a conference call with around 4:30 during snow days, and he lets us know what the trends are and what he anticipates, and each of us, ask our different questions about our towns and whatnot. And then there's a second conference call with area superintendents, North Haven, Hamden, Cheshire, Southington, Wallingford. We're all on a call together, and we talk it through. The funny thing about North Haven is Green Acres District can look a lot different than the Montauk East District any given morning. And so we talk through that, and I'm not a weatherman, so I'm always operating on the side of safety. So when I talk to Mr. Diana, and he's very conservative, and when he's out and about, and if he has any hesitation, he'll let me know. And we always operate in being cautious with our students. One thing that we did adjust that we hadn't had is a 3-hour delay. I think one of those days in December would have been helpful to have a 3-hour delay, because if we, like you said, it was beautiful at 9 o'clock, and the weather forecast did not state that it was going to be beautiful at 9 o'clock. So if we had that 3-hour delay, we could have gotten in by 11 or so at the elementaries and had that day count for us. So it's a gamble, but you're always thinking that putting buses on the road with our students on it, you have to really be cautious with that.
Yeah, just wondered what it was.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off of that because you just made me think of something. So as far as, I know that's a hard choice. I actually had a conversation with Dr. Cronin about this, like at one of the building committees offline. So I know that's a tough decision. But has anybody looked at our calendar? Now, I know this is probably an interesting point, but over the years, if you've looked at towns like North Branford and East Haven, as far as some of these, as either taking some of the holidays away or doing something, because the risk with snow, you can't predict it, right? But we get to a point where in June, and it happened a few years ago, where we were at the end with all the snow days and the snowstorms, and we got a long winter to go. We were like the last school out. We basically, it was either that Thursday or Friday, which it was getting, at one point I think they had to pull some days from one of the vacations, but not penalize. So I was just wondering, has anybody looked at the schedule about trying to do something with some of the holidays?
Well, I know other districts, they, like where I currently live, my girls go to school on Veterans Day, and they have presentations, and so there's some learning there. They go to school on another day that we have, I heard, maybe Columbus Day. Yeah. So that's something that we could look at moving forward, and hopefully that would give us some more flexibility if there was no snow days.
Right, and then it's just a thought. I mean, I've noticed it, and I know it's hard. People are used to that, but it also could get us away from, we still got February and March. And I wouldn't want to be in your position having to make that call, because it's really, that's a tough call. And while everybody complains about it, it's like, if you were in that position, what would you do? You go based on the information that you have. So that's just another one of my thoughts.
The weathermen are 50% right, 50% of
Right,
the
well,
time,
right,
so-
yeah, I mean, I watch.
I don't know if I'm that good.
Yeah, right, it's hard for us to, predict when they tell us there's a snowstorm, and That's a hard thing.
I'm gonna drag everybody back,
Thank you.
only because you indulge us and we appreciate you indulging us, because we're outside our workshop really when we start. But it is the only time we get to see you, that we can really understand your positions.
Of course.
I've
We can
said that.
change that. You're welcome to come to any.
No, you're welcome to come to ours.
We do.
We can do it more often. We can make it a budget requirement, can't we?
All right, let me kind of wrap this up,
Let's
folks.
wrap this up.
I want to thank Patrick and Pam. And I want to share with the public that these two fine people have been outstanding to work with. And on behalf of Ed, we really appreciate the relationship we have.
Same.
And I want to thank the entire Board of Education, because I consider myself very grateful. You've worked tremendously well together in a bipartisan fashion, and I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Anita, for the job you do as the chairwoman of the Board of Education.
Thank you, Michael. I'm good. Motion to adjourn?
Make that motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Yeah, we do it anyway. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.